Okay, so you got Aaron Rodgers. That don't impress me much. We'll talk about it coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Dog Pound? I'm Spencer German, your host of the Locked On Browns podcast. I'm proudly covering your Cleveland Browns each and every single day in the land and on the road. Maybe I'm crazy, but I don't know that the addition of Aaron Rodgers changes much for the Browns in terms of the AFC North and how to navigate it. With all the eyes on the quarterback competition, we probably haven't talked enough or praised enough Dawand Jones. Plus, it's a Fan Friday, and we've got a question about the quarterback depth chart that I will answer for you. Right first, though, I do want to thank you for being an every day here at the Locked On Browns podcast, making it your first listen every single day. Remember, you can find Cleveland Browns content with Locked On Browns every week, Monday through Friday, guaranteed, with bonus content on some weekends as well. And it's totally free to you. Make sure you hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you listen to your podcasts. And, of course, at the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. You can also get involved in the show by sharing your thoughts on any of the topics we discuss today in the comment section. This is your team, so be part of the conversation every single day. And today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And after months of rumors, speculation, reports, all kinds of different things that were said about Aaron Rodgers and waiting for him to decide what his future held, he has finally agreed to a deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think it's I don't think it's ironic that he waited until after OTAs were over, and the second that was done, now he's signed on the dotted line. He'll be there for mandatory minicamp for the Steelers next week. So there you go. I think that's pretty telling. But here's the thing, in theory, this makes the Steelers a better team. In theory, the conversation we had about the Browns quarterback room being better than the Steelers quarterback room at that juncture, where you had even this random assortment of quarterbacks, two rookies that are, trying to find their footing in the NFL and make it and become the starting quarterbacks, and then two veterans, one who's in his 40s, who's, clearly at the tail end of his career, and, trying to find, one last team or, one last sort of fun football experience before he hangs them up at some point. Kenny Pickett, who's looking to revive his career. Even with that random assortment of names and players in your quarterback room, I had argued that the Browns quarterback room was better than the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback room, which at that time and up until yesterday, or I guess even up until today, because I guess he's signing on Friday, up until yesterday was basically just Mason Rudolph and Will Howard. Not a group that made you feel like overly inspired, even though I like Will Howard and I thought that he had a chance to become something at the NFL level. Like, I could see him maybe being a career backup in this league potentially. There were some intriguing things there about when he had his best games and all that. So I was intrigued by him, but I still said the Browns quarterback room, as wild as it seemed, as unproven and unpredictable as it seemed, was stronger than the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback room up until this point. And so in theory, Aaron Rodgers changes that. In theory, he makes the Steelers quarterback room a lot better. But there is a lot that comes with Aaron Rodgers. And so from a Browns perspective, when you hear, the Aaron Rodgers is going to the Steelers, I think you just kind of keep stepping. I don't think that you really think much about it. I don't know that you now go back and reevaluate your schedule or play the schedule game over, where I had the Browns going 6-11. And I don't remember off the top of my head now if I had them losing to the Steelers twice or if I had them winning one of those games. I might have had them winning one. I might have had them losing both. I have to go back and sort of do the math on that real quick, because I can't remember off the top of my head which way I had those games. I actually think I had them losing both anyway. But listen, to me, I don't know that this changes the math on the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Pittsburgh Steelers, potential for next season in terms of are they going to finally do that thing they haven't done, which is win a playoff game at the most important time of the year? Is it finally going to happen? And so I don't know that I feel overly confident that this changes a lot for them. And I did have them losing to both, by the way, or I had them losing both Steelers games regardless anyway. And you can fight me on that and say no. I think again, Rodgers in theory should make their quarterback room better. It's better than it's at least better than it was. But and yes, you could say it's probably better because you at least feel like there's something with Aaron Rodgers that there's this proven commodity, and he did look good at the end of last season. That's the thing everyone's holding on to is those last 7 games of last year where he threw for 13 touchdowns, 1 interception, had a 100.4 quarterback rating, and the Jets were scoring over 20, like over 22 points a game. They had a lot of leads late games, and they still only went 2-5 in those 7 games. And it felt like it was more of a Jets thing than an Aaron Rodgers thing. And I get it. Like you saw some life in those old legs last year. You saw some life in that quarterback last year. 5 years ago, if Aaron Rodgers was coming to the Steelers, we would have been like, oh no. Like that would have been a bad thing. But if the Browns are going to win one of these games against the Steelers, I don't know, or either of these games against the Steelers or both games against the Steelers this year, I don't know that I think like Aaron Rodgers changes it drastically. I don't think it changes the outlook of like the Browns schedule. I guess now you get to say, hey, you got to play Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and Aaron Rodgers. But is he really on the same level, those guys at this point? No, he's a 40-year quarterback who is still only a couple years removed from an Achilles tear. And frankly, like Myles Garrett, he's probably licking his chops a little bit that he gets to chase that guy around. Because the one thing that was missing from Aaron Rodgers last year was his mobility. Like that was such a pivotal part of his game when he was at the peak of his powers, was his ability to navigate the pocket, make plays that break down and roll out and find guys and throw these pinpoint throws along the sidelines and things because he was mobile. He doesn't have that really part of his game anymore. And so the Steelers, I think, to me, is their quarterback room better today? Yes, I'll give them that. Is this such an otherworldly addition that we should be like, oh, the Steelers are now contenders to win the division? Probably not. And maybe they beat the Browns. I had them beating the Browns without Aaron Rodgers just because we're all, have our feelings about the Browns season and how it's going to go anyway. And the Steelers, and then let's be honest, like the Steelers are a boogeyman for the Browns regardless. Like they haven't won in Pittsburgh in God only knows how long. Like, the playoff game obviously in 2020 is the last time, but in the regular season, they have not won in that building in a long time. And so, like, we know the house of horrors that is. We know that the Steelers always seem to be like a boogeyman for this team with or without Aaron Rodgers, which is why I had them losing both games. That's part of the reason why. But Aaron Rodgers makes them better. I don't know that like this makes the Steelers this like otherworldly team now where they're just going to blow everybody's doors off. Like if people think this is like an eyebrow raiser and it's like, oh, Aaron Rodgers in the same division with Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, I think it's all in name only that he gets that sort of recognition and respect. And also, frankly, I think this is an interesting position for the Steelers to be in because with Rodgers, this might be the thing that either does Mike Tomlin in if Rodgers comes in and it's a disaster and it's bad for the culture of the locker room and all these things, because that could very well happen. We know the controversies that come with Rodgers and just the amplified presence that comes with Aaron Rodgers that he brings to the table. Or it could be the thing that like, hey, if he can win with Aaron Rodgers, not looking like Aaron Rodgers and, causing all these distractions by going to the McAfee show and whatever else, then maybe Mike Tomlin should just have that job for life because he can win with anybody at that point. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I don't know that it like changes the math for me on the Browns schedule and like how I feel things shaking out or like that this division is going to go any differently. I still think the Ravens are the best team. I still think the Bengals have I actually think like the Steelers could be the second best team in the division anyway, just because the Bengals defense has so many questions. But if you're talking just the quarterbacks, we obviously would say Burrow's better. And then I think there's like a gap between him and Rodgers as the next guy. And then it's the Browns group. But it doesn't make them, I don't look at this and think like, oh man, better watch out for the Steelers. I think it's just the latest attempt by the Steelers to insert a quarterback to fix their quarterback problem that they've had since Ben Roethlisberger retired. And I think that's that. Aside from the quarterbacks, one player has been the biggest story at Browns OTAs. I'll tell you who. We'll talk about it coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete finance command center that helps you track your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you can stop just managing your money and actually start building wealth. Take advantage of their all-in-one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check all your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Also, managing money with your partner is smoother than ever, which I can tell you has been massively helpful around my house, because we have so many subscriptions to different streaming services. We try to budget money for dinner, for fun stuff out with our son. It's a lot. But with Monarch Money, I can get a better sense of how much money we have, where we're at any given month, and plan ahead for future vacations or experiences that we are trying to do. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. So we talked a little bit about Dawand Jones and what he's looked like at OTAs already. I know I highlighted, especially last week after the first round of OTAs, how he just looks super healthy. He looks very athletic. He's moving very well. And it's all very, very good signs for the Browns. But we had a chance to actually talk to him this week in a press conference setting. And I don't know if we're hyping him up enough. He has been truly he has looked so good. And I think that aside from the quarterback competition, which we know is the dominant headline, the thing that everybody is paying attention to each day we're out there, it's the thing that on social media people are trying to dissect the Zapruder film on. Was it a touchdown from Caden Davis after he caught the pass from Shedeur Sanders or not? All those things. And it makes this time of year fun, more fun than usual, because you have that going on. But I do think like Dawand Jones is the undersold story of OTAs right now. I think he deserves to be talked about I like more than he probably has. And frankly, I'm kind of buying the hype on this. I thought it was interesting. He talked a lot about first of all, he talked about his transformation this offseason. How he probably didn't take his coming off your rookie year, he probably didn't take his training, his offseason training as seriously, and didn't take care of his body that after that first year. Like, he wasn't as dialed into what he needed to do to like keep himself in shape. And that led to, as I saw, as it was reported throughout the year, like him looking overweight, him just not looking as athletic as he was the year before. Part of that was he had the knee injury he was coming off of. And I think that sort of hindered his ability to do some things in the offseason. I think that hindered his ability at the beginning of the season. We saw like he didn't look like himself. He sat a few weeks and then he came back and played left tackle and actually, showed some decent progress. Like he had taken some steps in the right direction because he was finally getting healthy again. And then unfortunately he suffers the broken leg, the fibula, and he's out for the rest of the season again. But he's recovered from that. He's healthy. He has nothing that's like popped up in terms of injury concerns. And he's now going out there and trying to take on this challenge of playing left tackle. And that's the B in this, because his attitude on it, like he admitted to us as in the press conference or in the podium, that he didn't necessarily, he's been pretty blunt with Andrew Berry that he doesn't necessarily like the left side. And he's played right tackle his entire career. He's right-handed. He's used to those steps and everything that comes with it, but he's willing to do it if it's what's best for the team, and he's willing to give it a shot. And it might not work out. I still think Dawand Jones, whether he can play left tackle or not, could end up being like a future member of this offensive line. Like, I think if it doesn't work out, you just move him to right tackle next year with Jack Conklin's contract expiring, and no one's the wiser. you go draft a left tackle and you figure that position out. But I think like you're going to sort of see in the process, like Dawand be able to show you how good he can really be and realize his full potential now that he's finally healthy, and he's going to get those opportunities, but nobody's sort of standing in his way because he's the guy they're slotting in at left tackle. But the reason I just think like his attitude towards he's changed the way he does things. He looks a lot leaner. Like I said, he's sort of converted body fat to muscle. And so he looks stronger in that way. And he got with the Browns, training staff to like go through a nice plan this offseason to help with those things and bulk up in terms of muscle and cut the body fat, change his diet, change his regimen, all those things. The commitment is there. I think that's part of the reason why I'm buying the hype. And I also just think like he has the right attitude about it, even admitting that he doesn't necessarily love left tackle because he hasn't played it in his career. He talked about like, hey, Tristan Wirfs made this jump, right? And he's now a guy who's been an all-pro, gone in multiple Pro Bowls, really, really solid left tackle in this league because he was able to make the transition. And he feels that he's as athletic as Wirfs is. He feels he can do it because he has examples like that to go off of. Now, he had another example who was his own teammate in Jedrick Wills, same draft class as Wirfs, 3 picks apart, 3 picks before even Wirfs, and he couldn't make that transition. That's the key thing for Dawand Jones here is like that people don't realize how difficult that leap can be or that move can be because everything's opposite. And if you've only played right tackle your entire career, it's like reteaching yourself everything with your left hand. And he talked about that. He was like, I might even start writing with my left hand in team meetings and eating with my left hand just to like get used to using my left hand to punch and my left foot to when I do my kick step, my drop step, like all those different things to get himself in a position where he is more comfortable using his left hand, his left foot, and just kind of get more acclimated to what his body's going to be needed, what he's going to need to do body-wise, physically out on the field to master that position. It's not an easy thing. And again, it's reteaching yourself some stuff, but he feels up to the task. He's saying the right things. I think he's doing the right things. He's taking his physical condition more seriously than he ever has. And it's all very, very good signs for the Browns who are trying to map out this left tackle spot. And so as I sit here and tell you, like, I'm buying the hype on this, we only have 3 games to go off of. That's nowhere near the right enough of a sample size to say like he's going to be really good at left tackle. Now PFF, like his grades got gradually better. I'm not saying he was amazing, but they got gradually better over those 3 games according to their metrics. I do think it was telling that like you didn't really hear his name called much. You went from seeing Jay Wills just whiff on guys and have his name called quite a bit to having Dawand Jones at least not be really noticed at that spot, which is I think was an encouraging thing. So yeah, like I think he has the right attitude about it, and so I'm buying that he has a chance to maybe be something here. And the biggest question he has to answer now is like, can he just stay healthy? Can he stay healthy for a 17-game season? Can he make it through that haul and come out on the other side healthy and prove that he can do this job? And it might lead to the Browns just kind of stumbling into their left tackle of the future. I'm not guaranteeing that. And like I said, if it doesn't, it's okay because Dawand, if he at least stays healthy and plays well, maybe not great, but well, you can just move him back to the right side and it's fine. He can still be part of the future here. But they might they didn't draft any offensive linemen, which was surprising. They didn't really invest in that position aside from signing a couple like depth guys in Tevin Jenkins and Cornelius Lucas, who's your swing tackle. But they didn't draft anybody. And so this might accidentally end with them just like finding that Dawand Jones can be their left tackle of the future and feeling pretty good about it if it works out. So they're giving him that opportunity. We're going to see what he does with it. It seems like he's making the most of it, and I'm excited to continue to watch him sort of grow in that role, both at mandatory minicamp next week and then training camp in later this summer, and then obviously see what that looks like during the season once we get there. But really excited about Dawand Jones, and I think he does deserve a lot of love right now for what he's done, the transformation he's gone through to get to this point and put himself in position to potentially be that starting left tackle for years to come. If you were told there would be no math on this podcast, you were wrong. I hate math, but I'm going to try to put percentages on these quarterbacks in terms of how likely it is that they start. We'll talk about it coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast. All right, so it's a Fan Friday. I put out on social media and asked, and if you want to get involved on Fan Fridays in the future, you can always jump in the comment section at the Locked On Browns YouTube channel and throw something my way. Or you can hit me up on social media at Spencito_, and I will generally see your questions and I'll consider them. And I threw out the question on Friday, or on Thursday rather. Hey, Fan Friday tomorrow, what do you want to talk about? Anything you want me to discuss on the podcast? Any questions you might have? And somebody thought, I thought this was an interesting one. This one comes from @_J_Clee_ on social media. I have one underscore on my Twitter handle. He has two, so I appreciate the underscore camaraderie there. Anyway, he says, give a percentage for each of the 4 QBs on how much you expect them to be the week 1 starter, adding up to 100. I kind of thought this was a fun exercise, especially on the heels yesterday of talking about this idea that I don't know that Shedeur Sanders, like, I think it's an uphill climb for Shedeur Sanders. I would be stunned if he's able to be the starter week 1 just because of how the Browns have put these quarterbacks in order, how they have presented this depth chart to us. He is clearly the 4th guy in the depth chart. And so understanding that, I think like it's an uphill climb for him to go from now where he's considered the 4th guy to by the end of training camp, he's now all of a sudden the starting week 1 guy, especially when they feel pretty comfortable, I think, with Kenny Pickett. They've raved about Kenny. They've given him a lot of the first team reps along with Flacco. Like, he's just got so much to overcome, I think, at this point because of where the Browns are deploying him and how they're utilizing him in practice, that I think it's a long shot that he gets there. And I talked about that at more in depth yesterday if you want to go back and listen. But because of that conversation, I thought this was an interesting one to sort of bring to the table here by putting percentages, as the person on Twitter, Jake Lee, said, on like each quarterback and the percentage chance that they're going to start week 1 for this team. And so I think I still believe in my heart of hearts that this team wants Kenny Pickett to be the starter. Like, I think that is their grand plan, is like, hey, we traded for Kenny Pickett. He's the first guy that we brought in here. Now, he has not looked as good at OTAs, and I know it's OTAs, so I'm not reading, it's not the end all be all for me, but he has not looked that good at OTAs, in my opinion. There's been a lot of missed passes, just a lot of sporadicness to his game. It hasn't been a pretty scene. And so understanding that, I still think they envision him starting, especially like the other day, he got most of the first team reps. Now, again, Joe Flacco doesn't need him this time of year, but understanding that they feel very highly of Kenny Pickett. I'm going to keep these two veterans pretty close in terms of their percentages, but I'm going to say Kenny Pickett is maybe at 40. I'm going to say Kenny Pickett's at about 42% chance to start. I'm going to say Joe Flacco, or no, sorry. I'm going to say Kenny Pickett is about a 40% chance to start. I'm going to say Joe Flacco is about 38% chance to start. One of these guys is getting traded. We know this. I've pondered like which one has more value if you're trying to swing a deal. It depends on the team, right? I think if it's the Saints, Kenny Pickett has more value because he has the relationship with Kellen Moore. I think if it's anybody else who's looking for a veteran, they're probably more inclined to take Joe Flacco off your hands. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's probably the case. And so to me, I think like they want Kenny Pickett to win this job. And so I think he has a slight edge in their eyes, the eyes of the Browns, to be the guy who's starting week 1. So I'm going to give him 40%. I'm going to give Joe Flacco 38%. And that should leave me with 22% if I'm doing my math correctly. And I think with the other 22%, I think I'm going to go about 10% for Dylan Gabriel, and I'm going to go 7% for Shedeur Sanders. I like they have prioritized getting Dylan Gabriel more of these reps with 11 on 11s and with the ones than they have Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur took his first reps with 11 on 11s that we saw the other day. And maybe that's a sign he's climbing up the depth chart and these percentages can change. But I think right now, that's probably how I would have it. And I mean, listen, the rookies aren't that far off from each other. I'm only giving Gabriel like a 10% or a 3% higher increase in terms of like him starting week 1 than I'm giving Shedeur. But I just think, like, based on how they've put out their, like, what they've shown in terms of how they are carrying these quarterbacks, how they're deploying these quarterbacks during drills and 11-on-11s and things like that, the rotation of quarterbacks, it feels like Gabriel has at least a slight edge on Shedeur, and it might be even bigger than I'm giving him credit for. But I'm giving Shedeur, I'm putting Shedeur a little bit closer because I believe that, like, he has the ability with his skill set, with what he brings to the table, the fact that he's a perfect fit for Kevin Stefanski's offense, to potentially, like, change the conversation on where he lies on this depth chart. But I do think it's an uphill climb because they love Dillon Gabriel. And so I don't think in the grand scheme of things, they really want either rookie starting, which is why those percentages to me are super, super low anyway. They're making up basically actually, now that I think about it, I didn't do the math right on this at all. Because, yeah, what am I doing? Oh my gosh. This is why I try not to do math on this show. I should have 22% left over. What I think I meant to say was 15% for Dillon Gabriel and 7% for Shedeur Sanders. I'm actually going to tweak that slightly and say it's going to be 13% for Dillon Gabriel. And then that would put me at 9% for Shedeur Sanders. That's what I meant to have the math turn out to be. Yay, math. Look at me go. So I apologize on getting the math wrong there, but I said 40% Kenny Pickett, 38% Joe Flacco, leaving me with 22%. And of that 22%, I think 15% would be Dillon Gabriel. I think 9% would be Shedeur Sanders. And I do think there's still an opportunity that the rookies can maybe swap spots. But the Browns at this point have told you and communicated to us, based on how they've managed these guys, that Dillon Gabriel is ahead of Shedeur Sanders in this competition. It's just flat out the way that they've presented it. And so I think there's a slightly better chance, but it's only 15 for Dillon in my perspective. And that's not a lot. Like, that's not a high percentage chance that he's going to start week one. And so I don't think they really want either of these rookies starting week one is my biggest takeaway from this conversation and from what we've seen so far. They want them to sort of sit, be nurtured, learn behind a veteran, at least for a stretch of the season. As I've continued to say, I do think the Browns owe it to themselves to start both these guys at some point to get a better understanding of what they have with these two quarterbacks before they maybe go draft another one next year and hope it's their franchise guy. But starting the year, I think it's about a 15% chance for Dillon Gabriel. I'd say a 9% chance for Shedeur Sanders. And I think it's about 40 for I'll go 40 for Kenny Pickett and 38 for Joe Flacco, as I said. So it'll be interesting to watch how it plays out. That's where I stand on the math right now. And it might be fun to actually revisit this down the line once we get to training camp and decide, like, has the math changed? Have the percentages changed on how much I think Pickett could start versus Flacco versus Gabriel versus Shedeur? Maybe we will come back to it at some point, but I thought that was a fun fan Friday question. And if we do come back to it, I promise you I'll get the math right this time. I'm going to write it down instead of trying to do it in my head because I thought I had it figured out in my head before I recorded. And then here I was still not understanding how to get to 22%. How about that? So that'll make for a good laugh. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy your weekend. It should be a nice one around Cleveland. It's another episode in the books with you, and we'll be back with plenty to talk about next week, including starting to map out things that I'll be paying attention to at mandatory minicamp next week. That's right. We have 3 days worth of practices to discuss next week with mandatory minicamp. Should be a lot of fun. Myles Garrett should be in the fold. Some of these other veteran players should be back. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and make Locked On Browns your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Scouting, or keep it local. Check out Locked On Cavs or Locked On Guardians. Thank you as always for being an everydayer at the Locked On Podcast Network. I will talk to you again real soon, Cleveland. Have a good weekend. See you.